Hello, welcome back. Lesson 7. They're whizzing through, aren't they? I wonder what we're up to today. Let's have a look, shall we? So we're going to do some recapping as usual, some of the skills we've already covered, and then we're going to move on. Let's see what we're having a look at today. So we're going to be going back to ordering numbers quickly at the beginning of the session with a game. Then we're going to recap the rounding that we started yesterday, rounding to the nearest 100. And we're going to go again, come back to explaining our thinking, because that's a really tricky skill. It needs lots of practice. So what do we need for today? We need a pencil, we need our books as usual, or the paper that you've been using, and a different colour for our marking. So make sure you've got those. If you haven't, go and get them now. And otherwise, let's get started. So we are coming back to a game we've played before, and it's the game with the ladder. Okay, so you need to draw yourself a ladder. So 2 vertical lines with 5 horizontal lines. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections. Okay, so can you draw that for me? And once you've done it, come back. Okay, this is what you need. Hopefully you've got one of these. I'm going to create 4-digit numbers. Do you remember that they have to be in the ladder in the right order? So the smallest number needs to be at the bottom and the biggest number needs to be at the top. The largest number needs to be at the top. You decide which section you put each number in. If you run out of a gap, so if you've got 2 numbers in and there's another number comes afterwards and it should go in between, then you have to write that on the outside of the ladder, okay? So it goes in the ladder if you've got space for it, it goes out of the ladder if there's no space for it to keep it in order. We're having the lowest number at the bottom and the highest number at the top, okay? Here comes the first number. I'm going to play 2. You can see if you can beat me today. Okay, our first number is 3,123. 3,123. Press pause and put that one in. I've got mine in. Have you got yours in? Here comes the next one. Here we go. I'm literally just taking them off the top, so there's no cheating on my behalf here. 5,894. So that's going to go higher than the one you've just put in. How much higher are you going to put it, I wonder? Where am I going to put it? Okay, press pause if you need a bit more time. If you're ready, here comes the next number. Oh, big one. 9,119. 9,119. Where's that going on your ladder? Okay, we're halfway. That's the 3rd number. Here we go with the next one. 1,432. Okay, so we've got our ace is 1, remember, so 1,432. 1,432. Where's that going on your ladder? I'm doing okay so far. I wonder how you're doing. Right, next 4 cards. Here it goes. Oh, this might, here we go. 2,543. 2,543. I'm doing okay. Here comes the last number. Is it going to fit in my ladder, I wonder? Oh, is it going to fit in your ladder? Here we go. 7,524. 7,524. Where is that going? I've had a good day. I hope you've done as well as I have. It doesn't matter if you haven't, but look, I had a bit of luck here. All of my numbers in. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all in the right order. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 7,000, 9,000. There was no similar thousands today. They were all different, weren't they? And I got them all on my ladder. So I got 6 points today. No deductions for having a number over here. So I got 6 points. I wonder how many you got. Did you beat me? I can't have beaten. Maybe you might have got the same as me. Or did you have to lose some because they were over here like I did last time? Don't worry. If you ended up losing, find somebody else to play with later on in the day and see if you can have another go. Use your playing cards or your dice and have another go at that game. It's the luck of the draw, isn't it? If you make the right decision, I was very lucky today, so I'm happy with that. Wasn't very happy last time because I ended up with a few numbers outside, didn't I? Right, okay, so we've done a little bit quick recap of our ordering of numbers. Now we're going to think about that rounding to the nearest 100 again, okay? So you'll remember that this, when we're rounding to the nearest 100, we're thinking about the number in the hundredth column and whether it stays the same or goes up or goes down, okay? So if we had the number 3,431, we're thinking about this number here and we're using this number here to help us. And we're saying, is this number staying the same or is it going up? And we've got a 3 here, so that tells us it's going to stay the same. It's going to stay as 3,400. Okay, I want to have a little look today. We had a couple of tricky questions yesterday, so I want to have a look at some slightly trickier ones now, because sometimes, like when you're rounding by 10, sometimes the hundreds digit changes. When you're rounding by 100, sometimes the thousands digit changes, or there becomes a thousands digit that there wasn't before. So for instance, if I have the number 997 and I want to round it to the nearest 100, I'm typically looking at this number here and this number here, aren't I? And I'm saying, is 900 staying as it is, or is it going up 1? And because I've got a 9 here, it's going up 1. So it means I've got 10 hundredths, which is the same as having 1,000. So all of a sudden, I need 1,000 here and a 0 here. So I end up with the number 100. 1,000, sorry, rather than a 100 number. I end up with 1,000 number because I've got 10 hundredths, which is the same as having 1,000. So sometimes when we're rounding to the nearest 100, not only do we have to think about this hundreds number, but we also have to think about the thousands number. So let me give you another example. You see what you can work, see if you can work this one out. So 3,953. Okay, so we're rounding to the nearest 100. This is the digit we're going to do something with. This is the one we're going to use to help us. Okay, what is that number rounding to? Okay, so it's got a 5 here. So that's telling us we need to go up, isn't it? Okay, so it's not staying at 900. So 3,900, we're going to have a 10 hundredths here. So we're going to make 1,000 with those, and we're going to end up with the number 4,000. So even though we're rounding to the nearest 100, we end up with 4,000 because this number sits between 3,900 and 100 away from that is 4,000. So sometimes we have to really think about that thousands digit. Okay, so if we're rounding to the nearest 100, we always go to the hundreds and the tens to decide what we're going to do. But sometimes we have to alter that thousands number, and that's really important to remember. Okay, so that's what we're going to be thinking about in some of the numbers we do today. So I've got a selection for you to do now. So can you write the title for me, Rounding to the Nearest 100, into your book? Okay, and we're going to have a go at doing some of those yourselves now. Okay, so you might need to really think about that thousands number for some of them. Off you go. Have you managed to do all 8? Have you really thought about what you were doing? I hope so. I hope you've not been tripped up by those tricky ones that I've put in. Let's have a look at the answer, shall we? So 678, what's that going to become? 678, so we've got the 6 in the hundreds column and the tens column is a 7. So 678 is going to become 600 or 700? It's going to be 700, isn't it? Okay, so 678 rounded to the nearest 100 is 700. Then we've got 382. 382. So here's our 100 number. Here's the one we're thinking about. It's another one that's going to go up because it's an 8 in that tens column. So it's going to become 400. Okay, 431. The 400. Is it going to be 400 or 500? Check over here. It's a 3, so it's going to stay as 400. It's closest to 400. Then this was my tricky one for the 3-digit numbers. 999. I hope this didn't catch you out. So we've got a 9 here, which says this has to go up. So we end up with 1000, or what we know as 1,000. So when we have 10 hundreds, we end up with 1,000, don't we? And we know that because those 100 blocks and squares we had made a block of 1,000, didn't they? So when we had 10 of them, it made a block of 1,000. So 999 rounds to 1,000. Okay. Right, let's have a look at the second 4. So 5,670. 5,600. Does the 5,600 stay at 5,600, or does it go to 5,700? We've got a 7 here, so it's got to go to 5,700. Okay, 4,311. Okay, we want to round to the nearest 100. Over here, there's a 1, so it's staying the same. 4,300. 8,990. Here is our hundreds. Here's our tens digit. It's telling us to go up, isn't it? So we're going to end up with 8,900. If we have to go up 100, that's going to get us to 9,000. That was our tricky one in the 4-digit numbers. And then 3,157, rounded to the nearest 100. Here's our 100. Is it going to be 100 or is it going to be 200? We've got a 5 there, so it's got to go to 200. So it's going to be 3,200. Did you manage it? Did you manage to get those tricky ones where they went up to by a fact and to another 1,000 from that hundreds? I hope you did. It's tricky. Hopefully you managed them though. If you didn't, you can always go back to that rocket rounding activity that we did and have another try with those numbers, and that'll give you a bit of extra practice. If you think you're really good at that now, I've got some tricky explaining for you to do again. So here comes Thinking Tom. Thinking Tom has made a statement. Let's have a look at his statement. Is he right or is he wrong? And can we prove it, I wonder? So the smallest number that rounds to 600 is 601. So first of all, the first thing I'm going to think about is that right or is that wrong? So I'm going to imagine he hasn't said it, and I'm just going to take that number 601. If I round 601 to the nearest 100, it's going to become, let's have a look, here's our 100. It's a 0 there, so it's staying the same. So it's going to become 600. So he is correct, isn't he? 601 does round to 600, but is 601 the smallest number that rounds to 600? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to go with a number that's really close to it, but a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go with the number 599. Does that round to 600? Let's have a look. Here's our 100 digit. That's our 10. So does it stay at 500 or does it go to 600? Actually, there's a 9 there. So it goes to 600. So he's definitely wrong because I've already found a smaller number that rounds to 600. I wonder if you could find the smallest number. Can you have a think now? What would the smallest number be? So that's a smaller number, but he wanted a statement about the smallest number. How much smaller can we go and still end up rounding to 600? Have a little think about that now. See if you can write just the number you think it is down at the back of your maths book before I show you. So I'm going to write Thinking Tom is, and we know he's wrong, don't we? Because we found out that actually there are some smaller numbers, and I'm going to write because I know that, and I'm going to explain it. So can you have a go at that now? We know Thinking Tom is wrong. How do you know that? Can you use that number you wrote in your book to help you? Okay, so we're going to write Thinking Tom is wrong. We know he's wrong because we've done that bit together. Because I know that. Okay, and can you use that example of that number in your back of your book to help you explain why he's wrong? Press pause and have a go. Have you managed it? Did you manage to use your example? This is what I put. Let's have a look. thinking Tom is wrong, because I know that there are numbers in the 500s that round to 600 too. And I found that out straight away, didn't I? Because I had this number was in the 500s and it rounded to 600, so he can't have been right. And I said, for instance, so first of all, I said, oh, 578 rounded to the nearest 100 is 600. But actually, I found an even lower number. The lowest number that rounds to 600 is 550. Okay, and I know that that one's the lowest. If I take 550, let's double check that I'm right about it rounding to 600. Let's have a look. So 500, it's a 5 there, so it goes up. So that is rounding to 600. And I've said, I know that because 549, which is one smaller, doesn't work. Let's have a look. So I've got a 4 there, which means this is staying the same. So it means that one rounds to 500. So 550 is the smallest number that rounds to 600, okay? 601 was the lowest number in the 600s, but it wasn't the lowest number in total, was it? Okay, we're going to have another go at explaining now using the same skills. So Splash has made one now, so he's got a 100 challenge for you. He says, when rounding to the nearest 100, the largest number that rounds to 6,000 is 6,449. I want you to have a think about that. So the first thing, I'm not going to help you now. The first thing you have to do is Splash right or is he wrong? Okay, and then you need to prove it. So you might need to do a bit of thinking. Pick some other numbers, some that are bigger, some that are smaller. Is he right? Okay, and we're looking for the largest number. So we've got to keep going bigger and bigger until we can't get any bit larger because the number rounds to it, doesn't round to 6,000 anymore. Okay, you go and have a go now. It's going to take you a little while, I think. So go and have a really good think about it and come back when you think you're done. How did you do? I am going to be so impressed if you've managed this because this is probably one of the hardest challenges we've had so far. Let's have a look, shall we? Splash was wrong because 6,449 rounded to the nearest 100 isn't even 6,000. So let's have a look at that bit first, shall we? So he said 6,449. This was the number, and he said that's the largest number that rounds to 6,000. Does it round to 6,000? Let's have a look. So we're looking at this hundreds number. Okay, 6,449. Well, actually, this is the 6,400. There's a 4 here, so it's saying no, stays the same. So actually, this number rounds to 6,400. It doesn't even round to 6,000, so he's totally wrong. And then I thought about, well, what is the biggest number that rounds to 6,000? And the largest number that rounds to 6,000 is 6,049. So I went, right, I'm going to go 6,049. Let's have a look at that. Does it round to 6,000? Well, here's my hundreds number here. Here's my tens. That's telling me to stay the same. So that number's staying the same. That number definitely rounds to 6,000. So that is definitely a number that rounds to 6,000, isn't it? Then I thought, well, can I get bigger? Because he wanted the largest number. So I went 6,050. Because that's one bigger than the number I'd thought of. And I had to look at this. I looked at this hundreds and I thought, what's it going to do? Is it going to stay the same? Is it going to go up? And I thought, no, it's going to go up because it's a 5 after it here. So that's going to become 6,100. So if this number, which is one bigger, goes to 6,100, this must be the biggest number that rounds to 6,000. So I wonder if you managed to do that. Did you manage it? Well done if you did. That was super tricky. So if you've managed to do that, I will be really impressed. Even if you managed to work out he was wrong, but couldn't quite work out what the largest number was, that's okay, but you've done really well. There's some really clever thinking going on there. And again, I said, didn't I, that these explanations are going to take a while to get the hang of. So you might not master them during these 2 weeks. You might have to do some more work on them in school before you really master them. But if you can even partly get an explanation in there, you are doing really, really well. Right, time for a rest now. What are we doing tomorrow? We're going to do a bit of quick recap of rounding, and then we're going to be going and looking at numbers that are 10, 100 and 1,000 more or less than the number that we started with. So we're going to be doing a bit of addition and subtraction tomorrow with our place value. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Well done. I should think your brain is pretty exhausted after that session. There was lots of thinking today, wasn't there? Have an enjoyable rest of the day, and I will see you tomorrow.